Hey guys, it's Joey. So here I am wearing my Destin cap. This is going to be my Stranger Things 2 or Stranger Things Season 2 review, however you want to call it. I finished it yesterday. I'm recording this on the Saturday after the release. I binged it yesterday, as one does with Netflix shows, and I was going to review it, sort of like do an initial reactions kind of thing, but I decided to sleep on it and let it sort of ruminate for a little while and come to a full idea or conclusion about part 2. So overall, I think the show was really good. I think part 2 was pretty full, and even though it was sort of like the scale of the story was a lot higher, there's like bigger things at stake. It felt very centralized. It didn't feel scatterbrained, as a lot of things that try to like one up themselves do. It felt very, sure of where it wanted to go and the story they actually wanted to tell. Which is my favorite part about Stranger Things Season 2, is that it wasn't like the monster. It wasn't about the monster. Part 1, it was just like we had the Demogorgon, and everybody was going to try to figure out how to beat Demogorgon, and there was a lot of that in this, but it was so character centralized, and I don't think I would have liked it as much. Because to be frank, the overall plot wasn't that interesting to me. The Upside Down is sort of seeping over, and it's taking over the roots, which is making all like the pumpkins sick and the plants sick, which is a really cool like Halloween idea concept. But the whole thing with the Upside Down like leaking over and making everything sick isn't that interesting to me, to be completely honest. But what we got with the characters and a little bit of development, and the new characters were, I liked most of the new characters. I liked Sean Astin's character, Bob. I thought he was a nice touch, and I actually watched that after show that they did with the Duffer Brothers and Millie Bobby Brown and Finn Wolfhard, and it was pretty interesting to see where they came up with Bob. He was supposed to be like this just nerdy guy, sort of unthreatening, and then when Sean came in, they were talking about how his energy was just so good, he became like something more. He wasn't just sort of this one-dimensional stereotype, which the Duffer Brothers, admittedly, they make these characters based off like an 80s movie stereotype. It's like the non-threatening, straight, nerdy white dude. But he turned out to be sort of a noble guy. Even he wanted to make his last effort a noble one or courageous one. And for those of you who watched the show, which I hope you watched it when you're reviewing this, because it's probably going to be rife with spoilers, that Bob's last act was a courageous one, even if his advice to Will wasn't great. So what was really interesting was where they went with the Lost Boys kind of thing with 11, and the whole bitchin' thing, and she finds number 8 or her sister. I really like that they expanded the world a little bit more outside of Hawkins. I'm sure that's sort of going to be where we're headed in Season 3 or Part 3, because I think now there's a world here. And Season 1, there really wasn't. We didn't know too much about what was happening outside of Hawkins, but now we have 11 and we have 8, so we have about 9 more to go, as far as we know. 9 more other kids, the MK Ultra kids, to go. So I really liked what they did here. They fleshed out these characters a lot more. I felt a little bit more connected to them, honestly, than I did in Part 1. Part 1, they were just sort of like the goofy, nerdy kids that you see in like any Spielberg movie, and they kind of want to beat the bad thing, and they're going to go off and do it, and they're full of all this nerdy knowledge to carry things out. But now they're sort of they're a little bit more expert. They have a little bit of expertise now, and they realize there are some similarities to D&D that are taking place here, even if it isn't exactly like the Demogorgon was pretty close to the D&D character. What we thought was the Thessal Hydra is a lot different. It's not the Thessal Hydra like they played at the end of Season 1. But to be completely honest, the most interesting part, the most engaging part for me was the relationship between 11 and Hopper. I thought that was probably the most well written, the most well acted, the most interesting scenes of the whole second season. I mean, we also had the stuff with Nancy and Jonathan, which, I'm not, honestly, I know I know some people were dying to see them together, but I'm not crazy about that story. I was actually more interested in seeing Steve as sort of like a big brother type to Dustin. That was a lot more interesting to me than the whole Nancy Jonathan thing, which I felt like they just sort of gave to the fans. I don't know if the Duffer brothers were headed down that way, but that sort of was just like, here, take it. Of course, that might not be the truth, but that's the way I perceived it. The Millie Bobby Brown, 11, and Hopper scenes were just phenomenal. I love that dynamic. Brought a tear to my eye multiple times throughout the show. Just that, like, them both having dealt with so much pain and sorrow, and like having, bringing that out in each other, that anger and that love that they just like want to give. They have it to give, and they're frustrated. And it's interesting to see it in this sort of older man and this young girl sort of dealing with not the same thing, but a lot of the similar emotions, and manifesting it in different but similar ways. So that was really interesting. I think that dynamic was probably the strongest thing about part two, whereas in part one it was Winona Ryder's character and Jonathan. The mother-son relationship was really strong there, and now we have the son and, I guess, adopted daughter now in season 2. But I will say, I love Winona Ryder, but I think this Hopper 11 dynamic was just, I don't know, I guess because I'm getting older or something, I don't know. But it was a lot more engaging to me and a lot more emotional. And I really, bravo to the Duffer brothers and everybody who wrote those episodes, and them for acting out the scenes. Those scenes were stellar. David Harbour and Millie Bobby Brown just play off each other so damn well. And she's still such a green actress. To see her sort of play off of somebody a little bit more vetted is so fun to watch. So like I said, overall, the overall plot, the whole, the cancer of Hawkins and everything leaking out of the lab, and everything sort of breaking over, not that interesting to me. I know some people, I mean, it's cool, of course it's cool, but not that interesting to me. Now, the character dynamics, seeing Lucas and Dustin kind of get a little older and start getting all the hormones, and being interested in Mad Max, who was a great addition. I really dug the character of Mad Max, and her brother, who is an a-hole, but he's abused, so he's sort of taking it out on his sister and the friends, and he's protective because, complicated character there. Started off as, your typical 80s jock douche, rocker type, thrasher type, but there's layers there. As with anyone, he's not just sort of, what I like with Stranger Things, it's taking these very old two-dimensional stereotypes from old 80s movies and kind of adding layers. Like, why was, why were these douchebags, these douchebag teenagers this way in these original 80s movies? Why were they like that? In a lot of those movies, you just knew they were, you just saw them as jerks and you got no background information. But with Stranger Things, it being sort of a serialized show, you get to understand why a lot of these, typical 80s jock douches were the way they were. Well, in this case, they had the abusive father figure and, broken home and all that stuff. So the whole turning the stereotype on its head thing was super interesting to me. And I like where they're going with that. Then we have the whole Lost Boy scenario with 11 meeting her sister, and the whole thing with meeting her mom, which I wasn't totally engaged with. I got it, but I know it was all to come around to be back with her real family, her friends and Hopper. And she was looking for something, some kind of truth, I guess, and she got the sad truth. that maybe who she thought would be her family, who she belongs to, at the end of the day it was not, and her friends are basically the people that care about her are her real family. All that sappy kind of stuff we've seen before, but it's nice to see in the show, especially knowing what Eleven has been through as a character and what they went through in season 1. It seems really, really heavy-handed because there hasn't been much context. There's like nothing in between. We got a lot of the backstory between, the end of season 1 and season 2, where she essentially, it seems to break out of the Upside Down right after she's put in it, after she defeats the Demogorgon, which I thought was a little weird. Seems like maybe they weren't sure how to get her out, and they just sort of went with that idea of just like her finding a hole and getting out seemingly immediately. But I digress. I really did like Stranger Things Part 2. I could pick it apart all day. I want to know what you guys think. Please, in the comments, let me know what you guys think of the new season. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Have you not finished it yet? How did you watch it? Did you 4 episodes one day? I really want to know what you guys think, because I've been seeing some mixed reactions, and I understand it, but I think it was just it was so much more emotional than the first one. And I think it's because we established these characters in the first one, and now we're able to grow them. We're not sort of tethered to origin story, which is great. That's why I'm not totally opposed to saying the sequel is better than the original, because the original, you're sort of, everything is new, and you're sort of figuring out who these people are, and without context. And once you start adding more context to things, it can get a little hazy. It can get a little weird, a little off-putting. But I think they did it really well in part 2, which is what kept me engaged. And I honestly breezed through it. This one moved. I don't know if it's because it's new and I've been like sort of excited and hyped for it, but I feel like I breezed through this season. There wasn't a second where I'm just like, I'm gonna stop here. It flowed very nicely. It just went. And now who knows how long you have to wait for another one, maybe another year or 2. We'll see. I know I've read reports that they've already started filming, so maybe this time next year we'll have a new season, or maybe beginning of 2019, or end of we'll see. I don't know. I don't have any information. I don't have any exclusives, but that's that. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. There will be more Stranger Things videos. This is sort of my initial review. I know there's probably going to be sort of theories discussions, like what happens at the end. I'm not even going to touch on that in this video. We're going to do theories about what season 3 could bring. And we saw the snowball dance, which was a freaking adorable. I love that. It was so cute. It was so nice. But we know at the end we see the school turn upside down, and we see I'm going to call it the Thessal Hydra for now, that spidery thing sort of looming over the school. So they're not done yet, and I didn't assume they would be. I wonder if they're going to go anywhere else with the Stranger Things, or they're just going to be constantly at odds with the Upside Down. I'm wondering if that's going to be the whole thing until the series completes. Is this just a story of these kids versus the Upside Down, or is it going to start introducing other elements? We know we have superpowers essentially, but I'm really curious to see what other strange elements they're going to introduce in season 3, if they're going to at all. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, comment with your favorite parts of season 2, and share this video out, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, if you want to support the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I shall see you very, very soon. See you later.